On Alternative Africa today, I have the pleasure of having Allan Maleche from Kenya, and he's from Kenya Legal and Ethical Issues Network on HIV and AIDS. And that suggests you're a human rights lawyer. But above all, you're the recipient of the Elizabeth Taylor Human Rights Award. Congratulations for that award, honestly.
Thank you.
I'm sure you must have felt very, very happy, but did you see it coming?
Well, I didn't see it coming. I was just doing my job and I just got an email telling me I'm gonna be the winner of the Elizabeth Taylor Award, so it came as a very pleasant surprise. I was actually out of a board meeting at the Global Fund. It had been a very long day trying to get a decision approved about getting funding to Venezuela, and it had just succeeded, so it came as very good news at that time.
So everything seems to be falling into place. Let me just look at what Linda Gale, chair of AIDS 2018, she describes you as a tireless crusader for the rights of people living with also affected by HIV and tuberculosis. A tireless crusader. What does that say?
It just says that I'm really devoted with my colleagues at KELIN to ensure that the rights of those who are living with HIV and those who are affected by TB are respected by governments, that the people understand their rights, and that when the violations happen, we are able to find a way to ensure that we safeguard their rights so that it doesn't happen to another person again. So, by carrying out my day-to-day job and what I passionately believe in, I guess that's how they end up saying that I'm a tireless crusader.
Tireless crusader. Now, human rights and HIV, AIDS in Africa, we don't say much about it. Maybe we just read about it on the pages of newspaper or watch it on TV or listen to it on the radio. Are we doing well when it comes to, in Africa, are we doing well when it comes to protecting the rights of people affected by HIV or AIDS, tuberculosis, or people living with it? Are we protecting their rights? Because universal rights, are human rights.
I would say that we are doing fairly well, but there's a lot that needs to be done. Why do I say we're doing fairly well? We're doing fairly well because we've seen a number of progressive laws. We've seen the East African HIV Prevention and Management Act that was passed a few years ago that has got a rights-based language. It even talks about difficult things that don't happen in Africa, like providing sexuality education.
When you say East Africa, what are you referring to?
When I speak about East Africa, I'm referring to 5 countries: Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, Rwanda, Burundi, have come together to form
a collaboration.
A regional bloc called East African Community. Now, why I single out that law is because we were involved in the process of preparing it, and it was done in a consultative manner, and it binds all these 5 African countries. So it has got very good provisions that provide for the rights of people living with HIV. But what strikes me about this law is its ability to talk about the need to provide sexuality-related information and reproductive health services to adolescent girls and young women who are living with HIV. We have also seen progress in countries like Malawi, where a few months ago their parliament rejected amendments to a HIV law that would have included clauses that are clauses that criminalize the deliberate infection of people who are living with HIV. So there are some efforts that are going in the right direction, but my personal view is that we really need to step up the pace. A report called the Global Commission on Law and HIV Supplement Report clearly demonstrated that certain progress has been made, but we still need to address a number of things. We have to address laws that criminalize people who are living with HIV. We still have them in over 10 African countries on the book. That can be taken away. We still have cases of discrimination of people who are living with HIV. We have very little funding going into human rights intervention, and there are very simple things such as training judges, training lawyers, training journalists to understand issues of HIV and human rights, training healthcare workers so that they can be able to respect human rights and not violate rights, and most importantly, investing in community. So we would like to see more investments going into things that ensure the structural barriers that affect people to go to hospital, to get tested, to disclose their status, are then taken into account. So I do not want to say that it's gloom and doom in Africa. There is progress, but governments need to step up that progress to ensure we have got an enabling legal and policy environment, because the Global Commission report has clearly demonstrated to us that if you have an enabling legal policy environment, meaning you have good laws and policies, and those laws and policies are enforced, you can actually reduce the number of new infections by 1 million.
Okay, it seems as if in East Africa there's progress. We can smile, but it doesn't sound as if in maybe Central or West Africa or Southern Africa maybe nothing is happening, or maybe something is happening, but it doesn't show as if there's a light. We're going to see a light down the tunnel.
I would slightly say for Southern Africa, a lot of progress has been made. South Africa was the first African country to announce that they will provide KELIN, a medicine that has been made available, a newer version of tuberculosis medicine that has been made available.
Okay.
It's the first brave country to go forward and say people who have TB will no longer take medicines that are likely to make them become deaf. They're going to provide a new regimen.
Okay.
And countries like mine, Kenya, are still waiting on the pipeline to approve that medicine, yet many people need it. So there are some certain progressive aspects from the Minister of Health from Namibia talking about the progress they are making towards meeting the 1990 targets. He even talked about a very difficult conversation that rarely happens on the African continent, providing condoms to prisoners in prison as a measure of prevention of the spread of HIV. So it's a balance. I know there's a challenge in West Africa, especially about getting more people into treatment. A number of West African and Central African countries are behind track, and the UNAIDS acknowledges that in their report Miles to Go.
Okay.
And so efforts needs to be done to see how do we break the barriers to ensure that everyone who's in need of treatment is getting treatment, but most importantly is getting it in a manner that respects their rights.
Okay, you said something about people in the prison. What's the situation? How's it going down in the prison? Because if anyone goes to prison, you've done something bad. And sometimes it's not when you just steal something or you're accused of doing something wrong that you go to prison. Even for being HIV positive, you're taken to prison. What do you say about that?
Well, I think I'd want to say that using an example from Malawi, and a case that we call EL versus the state involved a mother who was living with HIV on antiretroviral therapy, who had attended a community forum. She had gone with her baby, and there are other women with babies. She had gone with her baby and her mother. And during the forum, while she was breastfeeding her baby, another lady who had a baby asked her to hold her baby. So she naturally gave her baby to her mother and took the other baby to hold her.
How did that happen? Because some people might not really agree with you. How come you don't know your baby? Why?
So this is how it happened, and I know that is the most difficult thing for people to understand. Sometimes we have community forums where there are a number of women who are coming together for educational purposes for the support groups. She was holding, EL was holding her baby and breastfeeding her baby. While she was doing so, another lady came and said, please hold my baby for me, I need to attend to something. And naturally she gave out her baby to her mother and took the other baby. Now, the facts before us indicate that this baby latched onto her breast, and immediately EL took the baby off the breast. Now, the other lady saw that, and then she reported EL because she knew EL was the person living with HIV. She reported her to the police, who then charged her with negligently spreading a dangerous disease. Now, EL was taken before a magistrate's court, and she did not have legal representation. So the facts as put to her were whether the baby actually latched on her breast, and she pleaded guilty. And so she was sentenced to 3 years in jail with hard labor. Luckily, with the support of the Global Fund and through a regional grant that is being funded by the Global Fund to remove legal barriers, Southern African Litigation Center, a human rights organization, was able to train a number of lawyers. And one of the lawyers, called the Wesley Mafurila, picked up this case on the media, went to prison to meet this lady, and the lady agreed to be represented. So they filed an appeal against the decision, and luckily the judge who listened to the case has been one who has been involved in trainings for judges again, supported by the global from the UNDP, and she was able to make a rational decision saying that science has shown that the risk of transmitting HIV from the mother to the child in terms of breastfeeding is negligible or minimal. And then the evidence on record demonstrated that there was no intention. EL did not deliberately go and pick this baby and put her on the breast. And so the judge considered the rationality, whether EL had the intention or the capability of transmitting that. But you can imagine what this means for EL, having to spend time in prisons, and prisons are crowded. It's poor ventilation.
What happened to her baby? Was her baby with her in prison?
Her baby was not with her in prison, the baby was left with the mother. But you can imagine that separation from...
So the baby was with its grandmother?
Yes, the baby was with its grandmother. So this is a challenge whereby you find yourself as a convict. So EL now has a record for convict. And you know, there are many countries that would ask you when you're applying for visas, have you ever been convicted for a crime? And you have to be honest in the way you fill the forms. So the danger of how you apply some of these laws is very critical, and that's why we're saying donors need to invest more in terms of investing in some of these key programs that remove stigma, remove discrimination, because our biggest problem in HIV is stigma. Stigma is brought about by fear. People are fearful of getting infected. People are fearful of their loved ones getting infected, and even with advances in having medicines, in having a lot of sensitization and medication, that fear still exists, and that is how you see it happening in the case of EL, which happened in 2017, not 10 years ago.
Not 10 years ago.
2017.
2017. That's the story. And I'm sure that's just one of many.
From the First Lady of Namibia, and on a very light note, she said, First Ladies are very lucky because they don't have to book an appointment to speak to the head of state. And so as for that, they become a very key tool in terms of advocacy. And my message to them, because I know there's a First Ladies Forum that deals with issues of HIV in Africa, is that they need to be champions of human rights and issues of HIV. They need to persuade their spouses, who are the heads of states, not to sign laws that have provision that would criminalize people living with HIV. They need to persuade their spouses to be champions on speaking about issues of HIV and human rights, because if the political will is shown from the top, it's definitely going to cascade to the lower level. So First Ladies have an important role, and we do hope they play it, but heads of states, given that the power has been entrusted to them by the people, need to indicate that HIV remains a problem, and they are committed towards ending HIV by 2030 as required by the Sustainable Development Goals.
Yeah, and I would personally recommend that the heads of government, you know, whatever form, they should have a conference on HIV/AIDS for them to also understand that it's a human thing, it's not a medical thing, it's all about human interest. So, well, can I say a very big thank you to you on behalf of Alternative Africa. I'd like to thank you, Allan Maleche of Kenya, Legal and Ethical Issues Network on HIV and AIDS. It's a pleasure to have you, and it's a delight talking to you. I am beginning to understand issues of human rights and HIV/AIDS myself, so thank you very, very much for talking to us. It's a
The pleasure is mine. Glad to have you on board.
Thank you.
Thank you.